Have you ever wondered what's really holding our financial system together? What's the invisible architecture that stops everything from falling apart? Well, it's called risk governance. It's a system designed to prevent disasters before they even begin. And believe it or not, the key to understanding this whole massive thing might just be found in a simple childhood game of marbles.
It all starts with a really simple idea. A guy named Sanjay Kumar, a professional in risk management, well, for him, the whole foundation of his career began with a game of marbles. You see, as a kid, he had thousands of them, a huge collection. But every single day, he would only take just six, to go play with. Why? Well, his logic was brilliant in its simplicity. No matter how badly the game went, the absolute most he could ever lose was just those 6 marbles.
I know, it sounds like a massive leap, right? Going from a kid's game to the entire global financial system. But that one simple personal rule, that idea of knowing your absolute non-negotiable limit before you even start playing, that is the very heart of risk management. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about marbles or billions of dollars. The principle is exactly the same.
So that marble game logic, that's it. That's the foundation for all the sophisticated risk management out there. See, this isn't about avoiding risk or being scared. Not at all. It's about setting your boundaries so you can stay in the game, so you can play for the long haul. And this really powerful idea of setting a hard limit on your potential losses right from the get-go, well, it has a name. We call it risk appetite.
Okay, so what happens when that simple, powerful lesson gets forgotten? And not just by one person, but on a massive scale. Well, when banks and huge financial firms either don't know their limits or, and this is even scarier, they just decide to ignore them, the results can be absolutely catastrophic. We're not talking about losing a few marbles anymore. We're talking about gambling with the entire global economy.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theoretical problem. This is real. By September 2021, the Reserve Bank of India was looking at a really startling number, 13.5%. That was the projected rate for what they call non-performing assets. Basically, a fancy term for loans that have gone bad. Now, when that much of a bank's loan portfolio is in trouble, it's not just a problem for the bank. It becomes a threat to the stability of the whole system.
What a timeline like this really drives home is that huge financial crises, they almost never just appear out of thin air. Nope, they build up slowly over time, usually from problems that people already know about. Think back to the 2008 crisis. That whole mess showed us just how dangerous loose regulations could be. And here, we're seeing a similar kind of warning flare, with bad loans projected to almost double in just a single year after the pandemic hit.
So after 2008, the reaction was pretty much what you'd expect, a global scramble for answers. Everybody was asking, how did this happen? And how do we stop it from happening again? And all of a sudden, you see this explosion in academic research into a field called enterprise risk management, or ERM for short. The world had this massive bleeding wound, and it was desperately looking for a better system.
So, where did all that searching lead? Well, it led to the creation of these really clear blueprints, these frameworks for defense. These are the systems that modern organizations use to build a wall against disaster. So, let's dive in and take a look at how they actually work.
Okay, so the big idea that really came out of all this is enterprise risk management. Now, it's super important to get this. ERM is not just another department you stick in a back office somewhere. It's a whole philosophy. It's about weaving the idea of risk awareness into the very DNA of the company, into its culture. It means everyone is involved, from the folks in the boardroom all the way down to the person who just started yesterday.
A really good way to picture it is to think of the human body's circulatory system. When ERM is healthy, that risk awareness is like blood, flowing through every single part of the organization, reaching every cell. But what happens if you get just one broken link, one blocked artery? That's it. That's a recipe for total disaster.
All right, so how do you actually build a system like this? The standard playbook, the model everyone uses, is called the 3 lines of defense. It's pretty straightforward, really. Your first line, that's your front line, the people actually doing the business, managing risks as part of their daily job. Then you have the second line, that's your risk and compliance teams. Their job is to provide oversight, to challenge and support that first line. And finally, you've got the third line, internal audit. They're the independent referees, making sure the whole system is actually working the way it's supposed to.
But here's the crucial part, and you really can't miss this. Frameworks and rules on their own are not enough, not even close. You could have the most beautiful, perfect blueprint on paper, but if the people in the building don't use it or don't believe in it, it's completely worthless. The end goal isn't just ticking a compliance box. It's about building a living, breathing, proactive, risk-smart culture. And that right there, that's the absolute heart of it. It's about a total shift in mindset. You've got to move away from this reactive, let's just tick the boxes mentality and move towards a culture that's genuinely forward-thinking. A place where everyone is constantly asking, okay, what's next? What's coming around the corner?
So what does that actually look like day to day? Well, it's a place where that 3 lines of defense model just hums along like a well-oiled machine. The folks in the front lines, the first line, they truly own their risk. It's not someone else's problem, it's a fundamental part of their job. And here's the key. The second line acts like a coach, a sparring partner. They challenge things, they ask tough questions, but they don't do the work of the first line. Because the second they step in and start doing the job for them, the whole idea of ownership just completely falls apart.
So all of this stuff, the complex frameworks, the focus on culture, it all brings us right back to where we started, full circle. It all comes back to that incredibly simple but powerful idea from the marble game. You have to define your line in the sand. You have to know what your risk appetite is.
Okay, so here's the textbook definition. Risk appetite is the amount and type of risk an organization is willing to take on in order to achieve its goals. But really, it just boils down to answering that one simple question. How many marbles are we willing to put on the line today to win the game?
Here's another great way to think about it. Imagine your business is a room with a heater. Your goal, your business objective, is to keep the room at a comfortable temperature. The capital you have, that's the energy that runs the heater. Now the risk is that the room could get way too hot or way too cold. So what's your risk appetite in this scenario? It's the thermostat. It's the setting you consciously choose to make sure things stay within that comfortable, acceptable range. And I want to be clear, this isn't just some high-level abstract theory. Companies use real, practical tools to make this happen, like this simple risk matrix. You basically plot out risks based on 2 things: how likely they are to happen and what's the impact if they do. So something with a low likelihood and a low impact, you might just decide to tolerate it. Something with a huge impact but it's really unlikely to happen, maybe you transfer that risk. You buy insurance. If it's very likely to happen but the impact is small, you treat it, put some controls in place. But that top right corner, a risk that is highly likely and has a high impact, that's the danger zone. That's the one you have to avoid. This is how you turn a big idea into a real systematic process.
So in the end, it all comes back to this. The principle is exactly the same. Sure, the scale might change, the complexity can grow, but the fundamental question, that never changes. So whether you're dealing with 6 marbles or $6 billion, the most important question you have to ask is, do you know exactly where to draw your line in the sand?